Good morning, Whittier families and students. I hope everyone had a good weekend and you're ready for a great week of learning. As many of you know, Whittier Education Campus is a STEM school with a focus on sustainability. What does that mean? Sustainability is growing your own products, taking care of your environment, and making thoughtful decisions. According to the EPA, the average American throws away 4.43 pounds of trash each day, wasting valuable resources that could have been reused, recycled, or conserved. Disposable items such as plastic bottles, food wrappers, and commonly littered find their way things into our streets and waterways where they threaten the health of our communities and our environment. One of the sustainability goals we will be addressing is responsible consumption. Asking ourselves questions such as, how do we slow down or limit the amount of waste that we create? Or, are the things we throw away hurting or helping the environment? Those are all a great start. Our guest this morning is Ms. Krupa Patel, the Trash Free Schools Coordinator at the Alice Ferguson Foundation. The Trash Free Schools Project works to educate and empower students, faculty, and staff to reduce their school's waste footprint by providing education and resources by rethinking, reducing, reusing, and recycling. Please welcome Ms. Krupa Patel into your classrooms this morning as she discusses some ways that we can reduce our waste footprints at home and when we return to the building.
Good morning, Whittier. My name is Ms. Krupa Patel. I'm with Alice Ferguson Foundation. I'm the Trash Free School Coordinator. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Basically, the goal of this is that we're going to do some educational activities. And you guys are going to work individually from your home to become a trash free school as a whole. So we can all make a small changes and make a great impact. So here's a little short video of Alice Ferguson Foundation. Enjoy.
There's just so much magic here, for lack of a better word. The Fergusons bought this property back in the 1920s as sort of a weekend and summer country retreat from the city, and then in 1954 was when the foundation was officially started. Our mission is to connect people to the natural world, and we do that. We do that through education, we do that through advocacy, we do that through stewardship.
You bring these kids in and they reach under a chicken and pull out an egg, or they reach under a cow and pull on their udders and get milk. The kids are just, their faces light up.
While we're standing up on top of the hill here, we get to tell the students, oh, look at that, that's where you came from. You may seem like you're out in the jungles of Bora Bora, but really you're about 5 miles, 10 miles away from the city.
Just behind me is the Potomac River. I live in DC, so I might think that what I'm doing doesn't affect the river, but everything runs downstream. Everything ends up down here and then eventually into the ocean.
Really, what we're trying to do is to really let them know of their impact. Here is how your impact affects DC. Here's how it affects your community. Here's how it affects the whole watershed. Here's how it affects those crabs that you love to eat during the summer.
When you talk about environmental education, I think a lot of people think of kids and where they can learn, but everybody can learn about environmental impact, and what they're doing every day is making an impact.
It changes the way that you look at the rest of the world when you're off the property too. So the magic sort of goes beyond just the property here.
Okay, so that was a short video about Alice Ferguson Foundation, and a little perspective for me is that environmental education is very important to me. You can learn so much just being outside, just having your scientific hat on, where you're making observations, you learn things, you start questioning things, you develop curiosity, and you want to learn more. And that's what we bring when we have kids come to our farm. And after we learn about how important our earth is, we get this urge to take action to protect our earth, right? Because again, it is what we all have in common, is this earth. So the short little video will talk about trash and the impacts trash has on our earth, and some solutions, some guidance to help us think of ways to reduce our trash footprint. Okay? And then we'll touch back in a moment. Hi, I'm Kripa Patel. I'm the Trash Free School Coordinator at Alice Ferguson Foundation. Today, as scientists, we're going to talk about trash and its impact on our environment. You have probably seen trash in your community, and you realize that it is a problem. These observations that you made about trash is the start of a scientific process. And you've probably had a lot of questions like, where does this trash come from? Where does the trash go? And what happens to all that trash when it's just out there? This is part of our research. Scientists make these observations, collect data, and research on finding solutions. So let's do some of our own research of how litter moves around the environment. Overflowing trash bins easily contributes to litter issues. For example, in public spaces like shopping centers, there aren't enough trash receptacles and they can easily get filled up faster than they can get cleaned out. Wind carries trash items out of the receptacles and into the streets, or super strong storms can knock down bins, blow trash into the trees and other places in our environment. In the middle of the night, animals searching for food can be attracted by the smell trash and recycling bins give off from the leftover food thrown away, as you can see. And as it searches, pieces of trash gets tossed out, or maybe it will attempt to eat some of the trash that smells or looks like food. Some trash is bound to fly out during collection process. Washing machines sheds fiber from clothes, which gets washed down the drain and into our waterways. Littering, where people dispose of trash where it doesn't belong. And lastly, the trash that made its way into our environment ends up as runoff in our stormwater when it rains. All rainfall that hits on top of this hill will flow down to that river. That river is called the Potomac, which will flow into the Chesapeake Bay and then into the Atlantic Ocean. And as water travels, it collects trash and moves it along from one place to another. So what happens when trash is out there? Samantha Battersby is going to lead an investigation on trash and its impact.
All of these items are common items that we find during cleanups throughout the Potomac River watershed. So what happens if we just leave these items there? What do you think would happen? Does anyone know what decompose means? Decompose means to break down. So how long is this going to break down in our environment if we just left it there? Will it stay there forever? Let's find out. All right, so for this activity, once you have all of these supplies, we're going to line them up from the least amount of time to break down to the most amount of time to break down. So what items do you think will break down the fastest if we left them in the environment and did no cleanups? Alright, now that we have everything lined up, let's go over this. From the least amount of time to break down to the most amount of time to break down. So first up, we're going to have our paper towel. This takes about 2 to 4 weeks to break down if we were just to leave it in our environment and never pick it up. Our newspaper takes about 6 weeks to break down. Next up is going to be our cardboard box. This takes about 8 weeks to break down. Now, after that, things get a little more tricky. Next, will be our cloth, but depending on the type of cloth, it's going to vary on the time it'll take to break down. So this organic piece of cloth is going to take around 2 to 5 months to break down. But something like my t-shirt could take up to 50 years to break down because of the plastics that are in it. It's got polyester and nylon. So after our cloth, we've got our plastic bag. This takes about 10 to 20 years to break down. Now the interesting thing about plastic is that it never truly disappears. It just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, known as microplastics. Next up is going to be our tin can. You'd think that this would be after our aluminum can, right? Because of how thick it is. But this takes about 50 years to break down, and you can see it's already rusting. Next up is going to be our foam cup. Now remember, styrofoam is a type of plastic, so like the plastic bag, it'll just break down into smaller and smaller pieces. This takes about 50 years to break down as well. Next up is our aluminum can. This takes about 200 years to break down. But the great thing about aluminum cans is that they can be recycled an infinite number of times. So if I were to recycle this aluminum can today, in 60 to 90 days, it'll be back on the shelf as an aluminum can. Next is going to be the plastic water bottle. Now this takes about 450 years to break down, and unlike our aluminum can, will not be recycled an infinite number of times, if it even gets recycled. These will also never be a plastic water bottle again once it's recycled. They'll turn it into something new. Next will be our fishing line. Now you would think something this small would break down a lot faster, but it is really strong. In fact, during a lot of cleanups, I have to bring scissors with me to cut this off of rocks and tree limbs because I cannot get it off with my bare hands. This takes about 600 years to break down. Last but certainly not least is our glass bottle. This can take up to thousands to millions of years to break down if we just left it in our environment. So here's our trash timeline. Now that we've investigated how trash ends up in our environment and its decomposition rate if we just were to leave it in our environment, what can we do to reduce our trash footprint? A step that we can take is doing trash-free lunch. Here are some easy swaps you can make for your trash-free lunch. Be sure to put your snacks and sandwiches in a reusable container. Bring reusable utensils to eat your lunch. Put your drinks in a reusable water bottle. And don't forget to bring your reusable lunchbox.
Additional steps you can take is researching your local recycling center for do's and don'ts of proper recycling. You can also volunteer at a local cleanup. And for more ideas, check us out at fergusonfoundation.org. Okay, so we just learned about trash and its impact. We learned about the different types of trash and its decomposition rates, and we learned about a solution of one way of reducing our trash footprint, right? The next video is gonna be about plastic. Maybe you've heard of the word microplastic. If not, you're gonna learn about it next.
This is a story about a water bottle, a plastic disposable water bottle, and how it makes its journey all the way to the ocean. We have all heard how plastics are a growing problem for our oceans, but how does it get in there in the first place? And why is it a problem when it does? This story starts with us. We make the choice to purchase a bottle of water. Then when we're done with it, we make the choice of how we want to dispose of it. We can recycle it, we can throw it in a trash can, or maybe we accidentally drop it on the ground. Either way, the bottle somehow gets into our environment. Rain and wind can blow it out of the recycling bin, out of the trash can, or off of the ground. Even if a plastic water bottle makes it all the way to the landfill, rain and wind could still blow it away. If it's in our streets, it's in our streams. Storm drains often flow to a nearby stream or river, and we are all connected by our waterways. When all rivers and streams in a certain area flow to a common body of water, this is called a watershed, and eventually all streams and rivers flow to the ocean. Once the plastic is in our ocean, the sun, waves, and salty water start to degrade the plastic. Once the plastic is degraded, it becomes porous and acts like a little sponge that can absorb chemicals like these that got into the ocean through runoff. As plastic continues to degrade, it breaks apart into tiny pieces like these. These are known as microplastics. Once microplastics are in the ocean, small sea animals like these fish can mistake them for food. Then, the food chain continues. The medium fish eats the small fish, and, well, there's always a bigger fish. So which fish in this food chain ate the most plastic? That's right, this is called bioaccumulation. And here's where we come back into the picture. We're at the top of the food chain, and the higher you go in the food chain, the higher the concentration of pollutants. See how you can take action against trash in our food chain and our oceans at trashnetworkfergusonfoundation.org, and follow us on social media.
All right, Whittier family, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I look forward to working with you guys in the upcoming month. We're gonna dig in a little bit deeper and do some student action in the upcoming month. So be sure to look out for any assignments to help prepare us for my visit with you guys. And there's also gonna be a worksheet that went along with the trash video that we just saw. If you have any other questions, please share that with Mr. Carell Thompson or write them down somewhere and be sure to bring it up when I see you guys next, okay? Thank you.
Even though she couldn't be with us physically right now, let's give a round of applause to Ms. Patel and the Alice Ferguson Foundation. Thank you again for coming to speak to our community. Families and students, please be on the lookout as Ms. Patel will be visiting classrooms in the upcoming weeks to participate in some hands-on learning and demonstrations on what we can do in our homes and communities. So everyone have a good day and have an even better weekend. I will see you all later. Peace.